Donald Trump broke the news, if you want to call it that, to a rally this afternoon in New Hampshire. It was part of a three-state blitz today that included Pennsylvania and Iowa. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron is in Cedar Rapids right now ahead of a Trump rally later tonight. Good evening, Carl.
Hi, Brett. Donald Trump has been very disciplined about using the WikiLeaks hacked emails of John Podesta to pound Hillary Clinton on a daily basis. Now, with this, he's only got more opportunity to amp it up. Here's what he had to say in Manchester.
They are reopening the case into her criminal and illegal conduct that threatens the security of the United States of America. Hillary Clinton's corruption is on a scale we have never seen before. We must not let her take her criminal scheme into the Oval Office.
Republicans across the spectrum have jumped all over this. Paul Ryan has suggested that Hillary Clinton shouldn't get classified briefings. Running mate Mike Pence, governor of Indiana, on the campaign trail in Pennsylvania today, suggested Comey really has to come clean with a little bit more information. Watch.
We call on the FBI to immediately release all the emails pertinent to their reopened investigation. The American people have a right to know, and they have a right to know before Election Day.
Trump has been saying essentially the same thing and complaining that there should be more information revealed. And he had an event today in Lisbon, Maine. That's the 2nd district because Maine has this quirky way of dividing up some of their electoral college votes based on a congressional district. Here was the latest comments from the Republican nominee.
I have great respect for the FBI for righting this wrong. The American people fully understand her corruption, and we hope all justice will finally be served. This is the biggest political scandal since Watergate, and I'm sure that it will be properly handled from this point forward. Thank you.
Add in the spiking premiums for Obamacare next year and the WikiLeaks, and Trump has plenty of ammunition for his arsenal in the last 11 days. Brett.
Carl Cameron live in Cedar Rapids. Carl, thank you. This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. A presidential campaign for the ages has taken an even more bizarre turn than anyone could have ever predicted. The FBI now says it will review emails that appear to be pertinent to its investigation into the Hillary Clinton email scandal. This comes just 11 days before Election Day. Those new emails, thousands of them we're told, appear to result from the sexting investigation of disgraced former Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner, married to senior Clinton aide Huma Abedin. As you can imagine, this news has turned the entire political universe on its head. It has given Donald Trump new life for his campaign, and it has given Hillary Clinton and her campaign new reason to worry, as she seemed to be coasting to Election Day with red state visits and a down-ballot push. My interview from this morning with Donald Trump and Mike Pence is coming up shortly. But we begin with the stunning news of the FBI announcement and reaction to it. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Carl Cameron is traveling with the Trump team in Iowa. Jennifer Griffin is also in Iowa with the Hillary Clinton campaign. But we begin with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Brett. An FBI source tells me tonight the focus is on thousands of emails that were sent and received by Huma Abedin, Clinton's top aide. This source could not say whether those emails were sent back and forth with Hillary Clinton or not, or whether they were classified. A key question. A senior law enforcement official adds the FBI was in what they believe to be an impossible position. They found a trove of emails connected to the Clinton probe that never closed down. If they waited until after the election, Republicans would accuse them of holding back critical info. By moving forward, Democrats are furious. It may tilt a close race. A blockbuster double-barreled October surprise from FBI Director James Comey. He is investigating Hillary Clinton and her server again after new emails emerged, according to an FBI source, from the separate sexting investigation of former Congressman Anthony Weiner, husband of Huma Abedin, Clinton's top aide, who was interviewed by the FBI during phase 1 of their investigation. Comey firing off a new letter to stunned members of Congress. Quote, I am writing to inform you that the investigative team briefed me on this yesterday, and I agreed that the FBI should take appropriate investigative steps designed to allow investigators to review these emails to determine whether they contain classified information, as well as to assess their importance to our investigation. Comey was under intense pressure after declining in July to press charges against Clinton, despite kicking off an extraordinary news conference by suggesting she did, in fact, mishandle classified information.
Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
Beyond being a criminal problem for Clinton, she has been suffering political damage ever since a March 2015 news conference, where she made a series of promises to the American people that turned out to be false.
There is no classified materials.
Comey's probe, though, has been clouded by former President Bill Clinton meeting privately with Attorney General Loretta Lynch on an airplane, and President Obama suggesting in multiple interviews that Clinton did not violate any laws.
Can you still say that?
I continue to believe that she has not jeopardized America's national security.
Today, the president had no comment.
Mr. President, in reaction to the FBI reopening the investigation into Clinton's email server, is she fit to serve?
As for demands by the Clinton camp that the FBI release more information tonight, a senior law enforcement source is telling us they have no plans to do so, and they doubt it will be wrapped up by the election. A former FBI official told me, meanwhile, if Clinton is worried about timing, she should not have kept the existence of her server secret for so long. Brett.
Again, just to be clear, we don't know whether Hillary Clinton is emailed here by Huma Abedin.
Correct.
And we don't know the existence of the 33,000 other emails, the Hillary Clinton emails.
Yeah, there was a New York Post story recently, as the WikiLeaks dumps have been happening, suggesting that the IT company in Colorado may not have deleted all 33,000 Hillary Clinton thought were deleted with BleachBit. And so some of those emails could be emerging. Some could be included in what they found in Huma Abedin's device. We simply don't know. What we do know is that Huma Abedin is always by Hillary Clinton's side, and when they're not together, they are emailing frequently. So if they're looking at thousands of emails to and from Huma Abedin, you would expect at least Hillary Clinton or other senior people in the Clinton camp would be emailing with her, Brett.
Okay, Ed, thank you. The day began for Hillary Clinton with good financial news about the campaign's bulging bank account, cash on hand. But everything changed around lunchtime with this FBI announcement. Fox News correspondent Jennifer Griffin is with the Clinton team in Des Moines tonight. Good evening, Jennifer.
Good evening, Brett. Well, Hillary Clinton is speaking over my shoulder here behind me. This is her second stop in Iowa. So far, she has not made any reference or spoken about the FBI director's pronouncement today.
Donald Trump says he can still win. And, you know, he's right. Anything can happen in an election.
The news that the FBI director was taking another look at the case into Hillary Clinton's handling of classified information broke as Clinton flew to Iowa. She ignored questions from the traveling press and instead simply smiled and waved. Clinton did not address what observers are describing as the October surprise few anticipated.
He refused to say he would respect the results of this election. I know. It has never been done before.
Will Clinton, her running mate, appeared flustered and caught off guard at a campaign stop with Congressman Gabby Giffords and her husband in Tallahassee, Florida, after the news broke.
Just got to read a little more.
It was clear Kaine had not yet spoken to Clinton. Clinton's campaign chair, John Podesta, responded to the news on her behalf, turning the focus on FBI Director James Comey, saying he, quote, owes it to the American people to immediately provide the full details of what he is now examining. And campaign spokesman Brian Fallon predicted Clinton will be cleared.
We are fully confident that at the end of this review, however long it takes, that there will be no conclusion drawn that would at all have changed the outcome of the investigation.
Recent WikiLeaks emails from 2015 show frustration among her top campaign staff about Clinton's private email server. Quote, do we actually know who told Hillary she could use a private email? And has that person been drawn and quartered? Like whole thing is bleeping insane. President Obama, in a radio interview before the news broke, had this prescient warning today.
My advice to Hillary will be just listen to your conscience and do what you think is right, and worry about the politics later.
A well-placed source tells me the FBI's decision to take another look at Hillary Clinton's email arrangements was the result of 4 electronic devices seized as part of the Anthony Weiner investigation into his sexting with an underage girl. One of those electronic devices, I'm told, belonged to Huma Abedin. Brett?
Jennifer Griffin with the Clinton campaign. Jennifer, thank you. To Donald Trump and Mike Pence. I spoke with the billionaire presidential nominee and his running mate this morning at Trump Tower in Manhattan. It was 2 hours before the FBI's announcement about the Clinton email case, a case that has been a major talking point for both men during this campaign. This is a segment from that interview where Trump was talking about the system being rigged. Again, this was 2 hours before the FBI news.
The system is rigged when Hillary Clinton is allowed to run for president, because what she did is criminal. What she did is General Cartwright is potentially going to serve 5 years in jail for doing nothing by comparison to what she did. The system is rigged when she's allowed to run, because she has done many criminal acts. She's not allowed to run. She is not allowed to be running in this election. And the FBI rolled over, and the Department of Justice rolled over. They didn't roll over for General Cartwright. They didn't roll over for General Petraeus and the many other people that are now in prison and whose lives have been. But when she's allowed to run for office, the FBI rolled over.
But you could lose this election and it not be rigged.
I'm having a hard time myself getting by the fact that the FBI took $675,000. The man that is in charge of her case took $675,000, let her off scot-free.
You know what they say, that that had already happened, that they tried to separate the two. I'm just telling you, that's what he says.
Give me
Governor Pence, you've taken a different tone on this. You told Chuck Todd that we'll absolutely accept the results of the election. 4 days later, you said if the vote is fair, I'm convinced we'll accept it. Are you worried that somehow this election could be invalid?
Well, first, let me say, I think we're going to win this election. I really do. I thought that from early on.
In which case we will accept the result.
Let's just talk about the integrity of the system.
Brett, when Donald Trump talks about a rigged system, it's a national media, with present company accepted, a national media that has been overwhelmingly hostile to my running mate and has been practicing willful ignorance on most issues emanating out of the years of scandal around Hillary Clinton.
For me, I have to see what happens on that evening. But I can tell you, we're off to a bad start, because Hillary Clinton is a criminal.
Okay, we got that part of the case, but what I'm saying,
and the FBI let her off.
The other day, the governor got a question at an event.
If Hillary Clinton gets in, I'm ready for a revolution, because we can't have her in.
Yeah, you don't.
And you said, hold on now, and you calmed her down. So for your supporters who are saying they're going to grab the musket or the pitchfork, you have a message for them.
I can only say this. Very bad things are happening out there. When I see in WikiLeaks that they have total control of the New York Times.
But he's calming them down, and you're not calming.
I want him to do whatever he wants to do.
No, he's not.
As far as I'm concerned, he's a free agent as far as this topic. This is a very important topic. But I've seen now in WikiLeaks where the New York Times is controlled by Clinton, by the campaign. But I see what's going on. I've learned so much from WikiLeaks. Unfortunately, you cover it, but the mainstream does not cover it.
Okay, but just to the question. It's awfully hard to take accusations from the other side about our supporters when we found out through that recent video
that Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Party were actually paying people to go to Donald Trump rallies to incite violence. I have every confidence that over the next several days, you're going to see people across this country who support this team go out there, talk to their neighbors and friends, and we're going to bring home a great victory for the American people.
We will have much more of that interview. I have a one-on-one with Donald Trump a little later in this program about a number of topics, and more from both men about a host of issues in a special Saturday night edition on Special Report, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, as we mentioned earlier, that the FBI made this announcement that they are looking into additional emails, thousands of them, coming from the investigation into former Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner. Now, back last year in August, Donald Trump, when Abedin and Anthony Weiner were having problems in the press and talking about them, he had this statement to say. Uma is making a very wise decision, breaking it off with Anthony Weiner. I know Anthony Weiner well, and she will be far better off without him. I only worry for the country in that Hillary Clinton was careless and negligent in allowing Weiner to have such close proximity to highly classified information. Who knows what he learned and who he told? It's just another example of Hillary Clinton's bad judgment. It is possible that our country and its security have been greatly compromised by this. This is August 29th of last year. He also tweeted a number of times that the, quote, perv sleazebag Anthony Weiner was a major security risk as a collector of information. With that, let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard, Jonathan Swan, national political reporter for The Hill, and Charlie Hurt, political columnist with The Washington Times. Okay, Charlie, let's start on the blockbuster, which is this announcement. And what does it mean?
Well, I mean, and, what a better, what else would happen on 11 days before the election day in the craziest election of our lifetime? In terms of whether, and of course it all goes back to Anthony Weiner. In terms of how much of an effect it will have, it's sort of hard to say. Obviously we've already had, 20 million people have already cast ballots. But I do think that it does hit that sort of sweet spot between, among independents, among people who, a lot of people are coming into this election voting against somebody. And something like this, where it's so clear that, it's so bad for one of them, it really could make a difference for those people.
Now, Democrats are saying, easy, don't hold your horses. There might not be a lot to this. Here is the vice presidential nominee on the Democratic side, Tim Kaine. Jonathan.
Comey's actually been quite consistent. I mean, it was interesting in your interview with Donald Trump. He's attacking Comey effectively, or the FBI in your interview. You didn't name Comey, but he's effectively saying this is an agency that's in the tank for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, 2 hours before.
2 hours before this news breaks. And now, of course, Comey is the evil Republican, trying to subvert democracy. But I went back and read Comey's statement in September when he was getting huge amounts of criticism because he released the information on a Friday afternoon before Labor Day. It was part of a big conspiracy to help Hillary Clinton. He said, I released it because I got the information that morning, and we want to be transparent and we want to do things quickly. Well, what would happen if he covered this up? What happened if he gets stuff that's actually consequential and he buried it? You think that's not going to leak out? You think that's not going to, after the election, come back?
Right. Well, what about the substance of this decision? I mean, would they go forward with this, Steve, if there wasn't something substantial that they're looking at or think they're looking at? I mean, is it just about making sure that they're transparent and nothing comes out after the election, or do you think they're there enough to move this forward?
I think it's probably both. I think Jonathan makes a very good point, but it's hard to imagine that James Comey would have injected himself back into the election in this manner if sort of their preliminary review of this material didn't turn up something substantive. I talked to one national security lawyer who said it would be reckless if he did inject himself in without some understanding that what he was doing had some import. Look, I think there are a number of things we could learn from these new emails. She could have sent more classified emails than we thought. There could have been more sort of order under server than we knew. There could be more work-related emails than we understood, even though Director Comey said there were several thousand that were not turned over. But it seems to me potentially the biggest thing that could come of this is if there are emails indicating intent. You remember when James Comey gave his initial statement, he said, I can't prove intent. And therefore, for that and other reasons, no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case. If there are emails that indicate some intent to hide this or some knowledge of what they did in setting up this outside server in a way that sheds new light on what certainly look to be corrupt practices, that could be kind of a game changer.
All right, just to re-cue for people following this, the email investigation, here is Secretary Clinton when she first talked about this and interspersed with the FBI director as he came out about the investigation.
Nothing was marked classified at the time I sent or received it.
Our investigation found that there was classified information sent.
There was nothing marked classified on my emails, either sent or received.
There was classified material emailed.
I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of two.
She used multiple devices during the 4 years of her term as Secretary of State.
There is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. In looking back at our investigations into the mishandling or removal of classified information, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts.
Most importantly, though, Charlie, this now takes the oxygen of this race, at least for a couple of days, one would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Steve is exactly right about this, that you know, we already know that she has a hard time telling the truth. We already know that she's reckless with her emails and classified information. The thing that is new, that could be new here is, and this is not going to be resolved but by the election day, is the questions about a criminal probe into somebody running for president. That's a pretty big thing.
And won't be resolved by election day. Tonight, the FBI will review thousands of newly discovered emails that may be pertinent to its investigation into the Hillary Clinton email scandal. It's a development that breathes new life into the Donald Trump campaign. 2 hours before this was announced, I talked with Trump and his running mate. You'll see more of that tomorrow night on Special Report, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But then I had talked with the nominee one-on-one at his Manhattan office, and he started by laying out the electoral map, his path to the presidency, and how he's more confident about his chances today. Again, this was before the FBI announcement.
We're doing great in Florida. We're doing great in Ohio. We're doing great in Iowa, and I think we're going to have a lot of victories. I think we're going to have a lot more victories than people even think. So we'll see what happens.
What's the biggest difference you've experienced between running a political campaign and the enterprises you've run in your career prior to this?
Well, this is all public. That's private. I used to get great press. Now I get the world's worst press. I mean, no matter how well you do. I will say this. I used to get great publicity. Now I get record-setting publicity, but most of it is bad.
Running of the campaign, I mean, you've raised a lot of money, but now, according to the FEC, you have $16 million left on hand in your campaign coffers. Hillary Clinton has $62 million in cash reserves. According to the numbers, to make your pledge of putting $100 million in, you're going to have to spend some $44 million before Election Day. That's about $4 million a day.
Well, I'm putting up another $10 million, I think, today. I'm going to put up some more as we need it. And what it takes is what it takes, and we're watching very closely. But I think I should be given some credit. They have a machine. The Democrats are a machine. We don't have a machine, the Republicans. We have, sadly, people that are in a leadership capacity that almost like not for us. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. But they're not for us. Hopefully they'll get aboard. It would be a lot better if they got aboard. But one of the things I'm proud of is that I've been able to spend much less money, and essentially we're tied. We're pretty close to being tied. I think you would say that if you look at the different states and if you look at what's going on where I'm leading in Ohio, I'm leading in Florida, I'm leading in Iowa, I'm leading in a lot of different states. The crowds are so enormous. But I was in Florida, and I'm telling you, it was 50-to-1 commercials, and I'm leading Florida. So, you know, in business you get credit. If you can spend less and do better, or do the same, but if you can spend less and do better, think of Florida. They say it's 50-1 commercials, 50-1, and I'm leading by 2 points.
So you think you'll meet the $100 million you said?
Well, I'm going to meet what I have to meet, but I'm going to put more money in. I think I'm putting $10 million more today. And again, I'm putting my money in.
Yeah.
She's not putting any of her money in.
Has the Republican Party been a net plus to you as you've run for president? What about the RNC, your overall?
Well, I've had a very good relationship with the RNC, and you know I'm a straight shooter. I would tell you. Reince is a terrific guy. He's really worked hard. And I think he's very devastated that Paul Ryan and others haven't been more like, let's get in there and help. I like Paul Ryan, but, you know, I'm disappointed that we haven't had more help.
So you wouldn't push him out as Speaker?
I'm not thinking about that. I will tell you this. We have tremendous support within the Republican Party, and the base is phenomenal. I guess we're at 84%, 85%. But if we had more leadership support, we'd do even better. Mitch McConnell's an example. He's got senators where I'm doing better than his senators, but they don't want to sort of get involved with Trump. I'm doing better than they are in their state. And, I mean, I could name 3 of them, but they're running. I'm doing great. We should be running together. I don't care that we're not running together. I couldn't care less, actually. But they would do better if they got together with me.
If you do lose, is the Republican Party dead?
No, I think it's going to be a different Republican Party. We have a base of people that's so incredible. You have to see, Brett, these rallies, people get there at 7 in the morning. We had the other day a group of people came 4 in the morning for a rally that started at 8 o'clock in the evening. And you're hearing, there's never been crowds like that. Look, in the history of politics in this country, there's never been crowds like we're getting.
Secretary Clinton said that when she's president, she will look to Vice President Biden potentially as a Secretary of State choice. That's what her campaign is putting out through the grapevine. What do you make of that?
Well, look, these are the same people where the world is so horrible right now. ISIS is winning. Our trade is a disaster. She's going to use the same recycled piece, just a recycled person. He's a nice guy, although he said he wanted to take me to the back of the gym. He'd be in very big trouble if that happened, by the way. He would have regretted that. But I think he's a nice guy. He's doing his thing. But these are the same people. Our country's failing. Obamacare is going to be repealed and replaced. Hillary Clinton's going to make it even more expensive. We've got ISIS all over the world. We didn't have ISIS. When she got in there, we didn't have ISIS. Nobody ever heard of ISIS. It formed because of the vacuum, because the way they got out was so bad, so pathetic. You look at what they're doing in Mosul. It's just so sad.
To that point, you tweeted out, the attack on Mosul is turning out to be a total disaster. We gave them months of notice. U.S. is looking so dumb. Here's what the White House said about that. What I can tell you is there are men and women in uniform who are serving the country in Iraq and Syria right now are putting their lives on the line to protect our national security, and the least they should be able to expect from the American people and the people aspiring to be their commander-in-chief is their unconditional and unwavering support.
We're going to respond. I've been reading about the attack on Mosul. We are going to attack. We are going to. Why can't they do a surprise attack and save lives? And, by the way, get the leaders who have all fled Mosul. The leaders of ISIS have all fled Mosul. But now, because of all of this advance notice, for months I've been reading about this. I've been reading about the attack. And every time I read the story about the attack, the imminent attack, I say, why don't they just do it and talk later? Here to attack and win and talk later. Brett, it's so bad. Now, it's supposed to be our people aren't fighting. You do know that. Our people aren't supposed to be fighting. But the fact is, whether it's Mosul or something else, look how badly we're doing. So when you say, as an example, they're going to bring Joe Biden back, Joe Biden's been a disaster. Obama's been a disaster. So when she wants to recycle a Biden and somebody else, and the reason she's doing that is she's trying to get the news off of all the scandals of WikiLeaks. Because if the mainstream media covered WikiLeaks, she wouldn't be allowed to run. And just in finishing, she shouldn't be allowed to run anyway, because the FBI should be ashamed of themselves for what they allowed to happen. They're going to put a great general named James Cartwright, 4-star general. They're going to put him in prison potentially for 5 years for doing nothing by comparison to what she did. General Petraeus, his life has been destroyed over doing nothing compared to what she did. And she's going to run for president. And when I say the system is rigged, part of what I'm meaning is the fact that she shouldn't even be allowed to run.
In the trial of former aides to New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, multiple witnesses have now refuted the claims by Christie that he was unaware of this scheme to punish a mayor who refused to give Christie his endorsement for re-election, of course. Do you still have confidence in Governor Christie to lead your transition team?
Well, I have great confidence in him. I have not been following the trial. I don't know really.
But back in the primary, you said he knew.
But no, I just don't. I mean, look, I haven't been following the trial. The trial is almost over. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do like him very much, and I do have confidence in him, and I hope it all works out well for him.
I realize you're confident on victory. On the other hand, if you do lose, what does Donald Trump do? Does he lead a movement? Does he go back to business?
I can tell you, this has been one of the most incredible parts of my life. I mean, there's never been anything like this. Your friend O'Reilly said the greatest political phenomena of his lifetime.
Well, we've never seen an election like this.
No, there's never been. I mean, you take a guy like Pat Buchanan, who I really like. He did well in New Hampshire, and he's been famous for many years, right? And, you know, I've won 42 states. I got the most votes in the history of the Republican primary system. And most importantly, you look at the movement where they talk stampede. We can't have any more people, sir, because of stampede. They've never used those terms before, stampede. And I tell you, I am so honored by the response. These are great people. The thing I hate is that these people are so smart. They love this country so much. They have been mistreated by politicians and their stupid decisions. Their jobs have been taken away. Their jobs have been taken away like candy from a baby. And they don't understand it because they are smart. They say, how can a thing like this be allowed to happen? Where our businesses are fleeing our country and going to other countries, and they're making product and just selling it back into the countries and we end up with the drugs and the unemployment. And these other countries end up with everything else.
So to be continued.
I really think it is such a hard question because I love these people. These people are amazing people. These are the people that built this country. These are amazing people. So I would say that I will give you that answer maybe on the 9th. But I think what's going to happen, I think you're going to have an upset, if you call it an upset, because as you know, we're doing very well in the polls. We're doing very, very well, leading Florida. I mean, we're doing very well. What I love is the lines in Florida at the booths are sometimes 4 blocks long. There used to be 2 people in a room and everybody falling asleep. Like Hillary, she goes home, she falls asleep. We will see what happens, but I'll tell you, I have the greatest supporters on earth. These are amazing people.
Mr. Trump, thanks for the time.
Thank you very much.
Late today, Vice President Biden said he will not be Secretary of State in the Hillary Clinton administration. Biden was responding to that published speculation about a role in the cabinet potentially if Hillary Clinton wins. We mentioned that in the interview. He said this afternoon, quote, "I have no intention of staying involved. I have a lot of things to do, but I'll help her if I can in any way I can." Again, you'll see more of that interview tomorrow with Mike Pence and Donald Trump.
Less than 2 weeks before Election Day, and Hillary Clinton is once again under investigation by the FBI for handling of classified material. So as a matter of law, what is the FBI actually doing? Has its Clinton email inquiry actually been reopened, or is this something much less significant? Let's ask former prosecutor Katie Fang, who is now an attorney in Miami. Hi, Katie. So what do you think?
Hi,
is this a case being reopened, or is this something else?
Oh, it's definitely an investigation being reopened. As a lawyer, we're really careful about our word choices. And if you look at the letter, Britt, that was sent to the Congressional Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, you see that Comey admits that they found, quote, pertinent emails. Well, pertinent can mean a whole lot of darn things, as we know, not only in Washington, but for purposes of a criminal investigation. So really, what's left to be seen now is who's going to get a sweetheart immunity deal, because they've been given out like candy thus far.
Well, let me ask you this. There's been some suggestion by Clinton defenders that this investigation, this inquiry that's underway now, is really not about her, about Hillary Clinton. It may be about Anthony Weiner, or it may be about Huma Abedin, but it's really not about her. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely not. The investigation that's been, quote, reopened, according to FBI Director Comey, is into Clinton's use of a personal server for her emails that may or may not have implicated classified emails. The fact that it was involving devices by Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin is the source of the information. However, it deals directly with Hillary and Ron Clinton, and to suggest otherwise is really irresponsible because no one else is the target of an investigation other than Hillary Clinton.
Now, well, I guess in a separate probe, maybe Weiner is, but that's not what we're talking about here.
Exactly.
Can you, just reading between the lines of this letter and what else we know, give me a sense? Do you have a theory about what kind of information this might have been that would have brought this about?
Well, it's obviously something that was of the ilk of the import that they decided, they being the FBI, decided to look more closely. I mean, thousands of emails suggest that it wasn't just a couple of casual, I stumbled upon something kind of correspondence that they discovered on these devices. But more importantly, it has to be, again, relevant. It has to be important enough for a criminal investigation to continue. Britt, think about the thousands and thousands of hours of manpower and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that's been spent of taxpayers' money going into this investigation thus far. Comey said it was done back in July. We know that's not the case. For Comey to reopen it means that he himself found something that's worthwhile, but you're not going to get an answer prior to November 8th in any investigation.
It did seem pretty clear to me when I read the letter in which he referred to his testimony in July, when he had said in that testimony, he mentions this in the letter, that the investigation had been completed. That suggests to me that the case had been basically closed. And then he goes on to say here, I agreed that the FBI should take appropriate investigative steps designed to allow investigators to review these emails to determine whether they contain classified information, as well as to assess their importance to our investigation. Now I'm seeing all kinds of words used to refer to this inquiry. I'm seeing reopen, but not so much. What I'm seeing is review, and so on. Is this just a review in your judgment? I mean, can it be interpreted that way or not?
No, it's not just a review. It's not, let me just look through some emails and see whether or not they lead to anything. There's no way he would have announced it the way that he did. I don't think that there's any subterfuge on the part of the FBI in order to do this 11 days before the election. And what I want people to know as well, Britt, is from a legal standpoint, just because you become the President of the United States does not cloak you with the immunity from being prosecuted. A statute of limitations applies to any federal offense. Even if Hillary Clinton wins the White House, she may face charges, and if so, you sure as heck know that Loretta Lynch has no business looking at that investigation or having anything to do with an indictment. You would need a special prosecutor, and the DOJ would have to appoint one.
Yeah, this one last question, Katie. The FBI director finds himself tonight under pressure from really both campaigns to release whatever they have. Is an investigating agency in a situation like this, in possession of materials like this, and beginning to investigate them, is it in a position to release them?
Absolutely not. He has no obligation to do so. It's now become another active investigation. If that's the case, during active criminal investigations specifically, you do not release what you have. There's no rolling basis of discovery given to the American public like maybe in a civil lawsuit. And so because of that, Comey can comfortably say, I'm going to retreat, I'm going to look, I'm going to investigate, and I will reveal what I find.
Okay, Katie, thank you very much. Jennifer Griffin is covering the Clinton campaign, and she joins us now. Jennifer, your thoughts about this?
Well, Britt, it was very clear when she landed in Iowa that she had no idea that the FBI director had taken this measure. In fact, they were flying at the time that the news broke, and the Wi-Fi was down on the airplane, and so the traveling press did not know, and Clinton's team did not know. So when she exited those steps and waved and smiled to the press, she did not know what was going on. She said now, after speaking twice here in Iowa and not addressing it during her prepared remarks, she said that she had time to then read the letter from Director Comey. She is calling on the FBI and the director to release the information that they have because she feels, and this is in her words, that this was irresponsible and led to innuendo because of the letter, which, as she pointed out, was sent only to the Republican leaders of committees on Capitol Hill. So they are baffled by this. She would not confirm that what we have been reporting all day, based on a source that I spoke to, that this, the director's decision decision was made after his FBI agents came to him yesterday and said that as a result of the investigation into Anthony Weiner and as a result of 4 electronic devices that were obtained as part of that investigation into him allegedly sexting with an underage girl, one of those electronic devices, I'm told by sources, belonged to Huma Abedin, but Hillary Clinton would not confirm right now that she had spoken to Huma about it, even though Huma is traveling with her and is on the plane with her, and she would not confirm the details that it was a result of the Weiner investigation. Britt?
Wow, interesting, Jennifer. Boy, this hardly could get any stranger. Jennifer, thank you very much. Donald Trump, as you might imagine, pounced all over the news of the renewed FBI inquiry while campaigning in Maine. He's since moved on and will have a rally in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where Fox's Carl Cameron is waiting. Carl, what happened today?
Hi there, Britt. Well, it was a busy day. As a matter of fact, there was an interesting sort of illustration of just how important this is to the Trump campaign. His first event was in Manchester, New Hampshire, and he had planned to have a meeting about the opioid addiction problem in New Hampshire with a bunch of people from the community. He postponed that to have his big rally in order to make a big statement about it. He immediately said that this is a potential pivot point for the entire election, talked about Hillary Clinton's corruption as he had for weeks, and then when he got to Maine later, he went further on it. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
I have great respect for the FBI for righting this wrong. The American people fully understand her corruption, and we hope all justice will finally be served. This is the biggest political scandal since Watergate, and I'm sure that it will be properly handled from this point forward. Thank you. In 11 days, we're going to win the state of Maine. And we are going to win back the White House. We're going to have honest government once again. Hillary bleached and deleted 33,000 emails after receiving a congressional subpoena. That's after, remember that, after. And lied to Congress under oath about her illegal server. It's time for new leadership, and it's time for good judgment.
And you heard there at the beginning of Trump's remarks, he talked about his respect for the FBI for reopening this investigation. For weeks he had been saying that the FBI and the Justice Department were rigged and were part of the corrupt problem. Now he's obviously changed that tune. And interestingly, Hillary Clinton in her remarks, they're calling on the FBI director to release any information, to let the public know what it is. That puts her in alignment with the Republican running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence. He was on the campaign trail today in Pennsylvania. Here's how he put that.
We call on the FBI to immediately release all the emails pertinent to their reopened investigation. The American people have a right to know, and they have a right to know before Election Day.
Well, there you have it, Britt. The Trump campaign had been pounding this issue aggressively for weeks. Now they have a whole new set of arrows to put in their quiver. And when you add it to the Obamacare premium spikes and the avalanche of WikiLeaked Podesta emails, they've got a lot to go with now. Brett?
All right, Carl, yes, thank you very much. So how much impact will what the FBI director said and what Hillary Clinton said, for that matter, today have on the presidential campaign? To help answer that, I'm joined from Austin, Texas, by the veteran Republican strategist and Fox News contributor Karl Rove, and from Columbus, Ohio, by Sean Trendy, senior elections analyst for Real Clear Politics. First to you, Karl. What do you think?
Well, it's going to have an impact, and it isn't going to be good for her. How this plays out is going to have a big determination on how big the impact is. I would say that for her, I think she was right. The people who are for her already have this baked in, so she's not likely to lose support among those people. The question is, among the 10% of the electorate that is undecided in a two-way race, or the 8% that is undecided in the four-way polls, how do they break on this? And it's not going to be helpful to her. She's got a lead in the Real Clear Politics average. And it's interesting to look at what's happened over the last 4 weeks. She began the month with a 2.7 lead. It grew to, by the end of the first week, to 4.7. 6.7 the middle of the month, 6.2, and then today 5.2. So it's starting to go down. The question is 5.2 something that can be closed in 11 days or not? And I think this is going to help close it. I just don't know how much.
Sean, let me ask you about that. Carl correctly points out what your average has shown, and it has declined lately. Do you ascribe that to WikiLeaks revelations or Obamacare problems, or is this just the kind of tightening of a race, at least in the polls, that we're accustomed to seeing toward the end?
Well, we've seen this trend over the course of the election. This election will get close, and then Donald Trump will say something controversial, and Hillary Clinton will open up a lead, and then when he is out of the news or bad news strikes the Clinton campaign, it tightens up again. I think this is a race that wants to be close, and as long as he kind of stays out of the way, that's what's going to happen. Now, I think these new revelations will accelerate that tightening, but like Mr. Rove said, I don't know how much it will accelerate them.
Well, what do you think? I mean, it accelerates the tightening. Do you see evidence in the battleground states of tightening of the kind that we can see in the Real Clear Politics average?
The state polls tend to lag the national polls a little bit. We just don't get as many of them in a particular state. But yeah, we've seen evidence in a lot of the swing states, Florida, Ohio. A couple of these states have continued to tighten. And so if this, right now, they're consistent with this 5-point race we see in the national polls. But if this takes a toll on Clinton's numbers and the national numbers tighten, we expect the state races will tighten right along with them.
Karl Rove, it doesn't appear that the FBI is really in a position where it can dump all this information out, despite the fact that both campaigns, in the person of Mike Pence for the Republicans and Ms. Clinton herself for the Democrats, seem to want that. If that's the case, where does this story really go? Normally, when an investigation begins, we know that it has begun. We know something about what the substance of the investigation is going to be about, and then it goes quiet for a while the inquiry proceeds. Is that likely to happen here, do you think? And if so, will that cause this whole thing to die down?
Yeah, well, look, this is an extraordinary moment for Comey, Director Comey, and he's going to have to make a decision. If this involves classified information that was on those devices shared by Huma Abedin and her husband, Anthony Weiner, then they're not going to dump that out between now and the election. But there may be another issue here. The issue may not be classified information. After all, the Associated Press is reporting that these are not emails that came from her server. So these may be communications between Huma and her husband. What may be there are emails that contradict whatever Huma said to FBI investigators. So what we may have here is a question of her veracity, and she may be at risk of telling lies to federal officials and either obstruction of justice or potential perjury questions. So again, that may be easier for him to put out. He may just sort of dump all that stuff out because it's not classified and then continue the investigation. But look, this does seem to be, I think Mike Pence hit it exactly right. The American people deserve to know. And it's interesting enough that Hillary has now said she thinks everybody deserves to know. One key question for Hillary is, if this involves Huma, is it in her best interest for Huma Abedin tomorrow to say, I don't want to be a distraction, I'm stepping away from the campaign here in the last week, the 11 days of the campaign, in order not to be a distraction, and disappears from the campaign trail?
What effect, Sean, do you think such a resignation would have on the race?
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, the last thing that the Clinton campaign wants is for this to be kind of like Donald Trump would drag out some of the conflagrations he'd get into. You know, they want this story to go away, and so I don't know if having Huma Abedin resign keeps the story alive, keeps it more in the newspapers, or helps it go away. It's really, I think, kind of a no-win situation for them at that point, because the one thing that they do not want is for email headlines to dominate for the next 11 days.
Yeah, they've never helped, have they? Gentlemen, both of you, thank you very much. Karl, Sean, both of you.